Hey, I'm just making sure that I'm live on YouTube for people watching YouTube.
Can you hear me?
Hey, I'm just making sure that I'm live on YouTube for people watching YouTube. Can you hear me? Yeah, I think you might have a little bit of echo, but drop and then come back.
No, it's not that kind of echo. It's like a.
It's a loop feed, a feed loop. I think the Mr. Coco account had it.
Okay.
I muted it and stopped. So.
Let's see. I'm just doing some technical things, trying to.
Yeah, the loop is because I've got it pulled up on my computer, and then I'm talking through my phone.
We're already 1 minute late.
Are we missing somebody? Who's the last person?
I think.
It was only 3 judges, right?
5, you said.
It's Placide, the second Mr. Coco account, Just Jim, Kason, and Robbie Rob.
Okay, so it's 4 judges.
No, it should be 5.
Oh, 5?
Yeah, on Coco's second account is the 5th judge.
Oh, okay, gotcha. All right, cool.
They just kicked me.
2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, we got all the judges. We got the contestants. Okay, so I'm gonna put you on the big screen, and you're gonna be hosting the live, so you can take it away whenever.
Should I? Actually, let me quickly. I feel like I should give you like 2 or 3 minutes just to talk to each other, just to set up for a second, just while I get a thing, so that I feel like I should at least quote show my face, but I don't want to show my face, so I'm just gonna quickly get a mask.
Okay.
And also, I'm doing so just to make sure. This is going to be for about an hour. If I can stay more, if we need to. And we will be debating the problem of evil between you and Brody, and we will start an official intro in, let's say, about 2 minutes, because people were told about this a little bit ago. And so if you're tuning in, we are about to have a debate between Coco and Brody. Coco being the host on the top left, the one in the green cap, and our challenger coming in, the one, the only, the youth pastor, the husband, Brody. And so if you want to follow either of these people, that would be great, as well as follow the live, and remember to share and like, because we'll be starting in about 2 minutes. In the meantime, while we're waiting for the minute or two for people to fester in, I don't know if that's the best word to use, but that's the word we're using now. Why don't we have a couple questions from or posed towards our contestants? Jesus Christ, you didn't give me mod privileges to expand people. I hate you, Coco. I was gonna expand Brody and say, hey, why don't you give a quick minute to tell us about yourself, Brody, before we kind of get everything going.
Beautiful. Can you guys hear me?
Okay, you're a mod now.
Loud and clear.
Awesome. My name is Mark Brody. This is my first time ever sharing my first name on TikTok, but you guys all know me better now. People on here call me Brody. If you want to call me Brody, that's cool. I'm currently a youth pastor in the Midwest, and I like apologetics. I've been interested in it since I was in junior high, so this has been a dream of mine. I love Coco too. Coco put all of this together, and he put so much hard work into it, and he's also competing in it, which is awesome. So everyone give Coco a follow for sure.
Like you heard the man, drop a follow for your homie Brody, and for the host who has been hosting this thing. And if you want to have your own debates against your own people, don't forget that you can also follow the host and contact them to set up a avenue for you and anyone else, your friend, your enemy, your friends, ex-lovers, wives, husbands, sword nemesis, anyone you want. Coco, as long as you bring him to us, will try and set it up on his account. Now, getting into the debate at hand. As we've talked about our 2 debaters already, Brody, the youth pastor husband, and fellow devout Christian, not fellow devout Christian, because I'm not Christian, I'm sorry, devout Christian. And you've heard a bit about the host, Coco, who is an up-and-coming TikToker who is trying to expand and bring more sophisticated and intelligible debates to TikTok, we can start to discuss the main problem at hand. The discussion today will be on the problem of evil. Now, the format will... Sorry, let me get to my computer because I need to look at the format. Sorry about that. Okay. Yep. So, the format for deciding the debate will be 5 judges. 2 are Christian, and we will introduce and talk about them later after all has been said and done and the debate has gone through. And we'll also have 2 atheist judges as well. There'll also be a final judge that is neither a denomination of Christianity, nor are they an atheist, allowing a hopefully fair final 5th judge. Now, without further delay, I would love to hop into the first part of our debate between Coco and Brody when it comes to the problem of evil and if it is a problem for the Christian God in how it is interpreted by our 2 debate opponents. If you would like, we can start with our opening statements, and I believe Coco was starting first with this.
Did we introduce judges already?
No, we're going to do that when the judges are starting to do their decisions, just because I feel like that would flow a bit better.
Go ahead.
Okay. Does someone have a timer for 5 minutes?
Yep, I can get that going. You can go in 3, 2... Wait, actually, sorry. Do you want to clamp down, or do you want to just start, and I'll start the timer when you start talking?
I guess you can make a countdown.
Make them big too.
Oh yeah, make me big.
Do I actually have proper mod privileges now, or am I just some sort of animal still? I guess I am. Oh wait, nope, I do have it now.
Yeah,
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, you can make it.
Can I not expand you? Dude, the fact you can't expand host still, even if you're given those privileges, that's a little annoying. But
I'll expand
anyway, getting back to the debate, we will have opening statements starting with the atheistic position. The problem of evil is a refutation of the Christian God, Coco. Your 5 minutes, give or take, depending on if you use them all or not, is starting in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, begin.
Okay. Hello, everyone. First off, I want to thank everyone for being here, and I also want to extend gratitude to the judges and the host. For the debate today, the debate prompt is the problem of evil a problem for God? And I will be arguing for the affirmative. I will be giving my best evidential problem of evil, demonstrating the claim that the Christian God isn't compatible with evil as he is described in the Bible. Given the nature of the format for me and my opponent's opening statements, my statement will be a brief introduction to my argument, and any part that needs clarification will be discussed in the rest of the debate. In regards to evil, there will be 2 particular evils I will be discussing throughout this debate. The 2 types of evils are gratuitous evils and inscrutable evils. Gratuitous evils are evils for which there is no reason as to why these evils should exist. Any God producing these evils would be doing wrongdoing. And inscrutable evils are going to be evils that we can see no reason for why they exist. We have no access to why God would allow such things, and these evils seem unnecessary. These type of evils in our world seem to be incompatible with a Christian God that is commonly described to be omnibenevolent, meaning all-loving, all-merciful, or perfectly just, omniscient, meaning having the ability to know all things, and omnipotent, which can be defined in many ways, but for this debate, I'll be describing it as having the ability to bring about any logical state of affairs that also are logically consistent with God's attributes. Given these definitions, the Christian God, to me, doesn't seem compatible with evil. As one traverses the world we currently live in, examining the plethora of examples of inscrutable and possibly gratuitous evils, it seems less and less likely that God exists or could exist with his prescribed traits and create such a world. To give an example of inscrutable evil, examples of this could be human suffering such as fibrodysplasia ossificans progressiva, which according to Wikipedia is an extremely rare connective tissue disease in which fibrous connective tissue such as muscles, tendons, and ligaments turn into bone tissue. It is, or might just be, the only medical condition where one organ system becomes another one. It's extremely slow, painful, and agonizing, and usually starts before an individual turns 10. Another example could be epidermolysis bullosa, which is referred to by medical professionals as the worst disease you've never heard of, a condition where the slightest touch can cause detrimental damage to one bearing this disease. This meaning for survival, they aren't allowed to run, skip, and during youth, play games with other children. This disease makes hugs something that one can't partake in due to potential harm, and it makes showers unbearable. According to the National Institute of Health, 7.9 million children are born with life-threatening birth defects and conditions like the two previously mentioned. Some of the worst kinds of theists might say that it's some kind of punishment, maybe a result of free will, but I couldn't see this being the case. If so, it wouldn't be of the baby's doing, but of the ancestors, and this wouldn't seem just, to punish an innocent baby for others' crimes. If this was the case, this would mean that God designed a world that would punish 7.9 million babies due to the actions of their parents. This injustice seems in contradiction to a just God. Some theists might say these types of evils are important for soul building, but why? Such a response doesn't seem sufficient. An all-loving God who loves all of his creation wouldn't have one of his creations serve as collateral damage just so another creation could have a built soul.
1 minute, 45 seconds.
To better understand this, imagine you are a parent and you have 2 kids. Could you say that you are all loving and love all of your kids the same if you, for one of your kids, made them lie in rain puddles so your other kid could walk all over them? Maybe in another instance, you let one of your kids kick your other kid for practice for their soccer practice. In this instance, we would see clear favoritism. Another thought is an all-powerful God could find less painful ways of generating soul building and also allowing free will, which Christians often highlight as reasons for why God does what he does. For example, let's examine the story of Abraham and Isaac, which at first might seem in contradiction to my previous claims, but please pay attention for my whole explanation. In the Bible, in Genesis chapter 22, it narrates the story of God wanting to test Abraham, so he instructs Abraham
1
to take
minute.
to the land of Moriah, and on one of the mountains offer his son as a burnt offering. As you read Genesis, Abraham proceeds to do what God has instructed, only to be stopped by the voice of one of God's angels crying out to him. Although this method is extremely mentally traumatizing for Abraham and his son, it shows the sadistic nature of God. This is an alternative world God could have created. So I end my opening statement with a final thought for the audience to think about. Think about this. If God is all powerful, if God loves
30
you,
seconds.
think about all of the suffering that occurred in life. Think about your own trials and suffering. Think about the horrors maybe some of you have witnessed. Where was God during all of this? Does this horrific world seem like something God would create? Couldn't
15.
God have done it any other way? These are questions that I ask myself. And this concludes my opening statement.
And with 5 seconds left on the clock, we conclude Coco's opening statement. Moving on, we will give Brody a opportunity to give his opening thesis or statement on the problem of evil. Brody, please take the floor. Like Coco, I will be giving you 5 minutes. I can either start you on a countdown, or if you wish, I can just start it when you begin your first word.
Yeah, I'd prefer if you could start when I give my first word, and I have a stopwatch here too, so I won't need the reminders. I can watch it on my end if that's cool with you.
No problem.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you for Coco for putting this together. Means a lot to have you guys take your time out of your day to watch an event like this. My name is Mark Brody. I'm a born-again believer in Jesus Christ. I'm a youth pastor. I served in ministry for 6 years now, and I'm very excited to be here. The problem of evil is perhaps the most common objection raised to the claim that there is a God who is all-knowing, all-powerful, and all-good. If he's all-knowing, he knows every instance of evil. If he's all-powerful, he has the ability to stop evil. And if he's all-good or all-loving, he should have motivation to stop evil. Now, I can agree with the first 2 premises. God is all-knowing, he is all-powerful, and he's all-good, but I believe that God has morally sufficient reasoning for allowing evil and suffering in the world. My claim is this: a world containing evil is consistent with God's desire to nurture people towards sainthood. This is often referred to as saint fostering. This means God's goal was to create a world where people have the ability to grow in virtue and meaningful relationships rather than remain static. If there's inherent value in virtues like compassion, self-control, and perseverance, and these virtues are known to develop in people when they are confronted with evil and suffering, it's not surprising that God would allow evil and suffering to exist in order to maximize these values. Now, I'm not making the argument that evil is necessary for us to appreciate the good, but rather that these virtues are unable to arise in individuals in a world without some evil and suffering. In a hypothetical world without suffering, what would it mean to become compassionate? How would that even be possible? In a world with no evil, how could one develop virtues like wisdom, discernment, and self-control? It seems completely plausible to me that God's desire for mankind was not to create pampered, static automatons, but rather free and virtuous lovers who confront evil and grow from it. If this is truly God's plan, then the allowance of evil is no longer a problem, but it's actually expected in the scope of God's redemptive plan. Now, you might be thinking, sure, some good can come from evil, but can it really outweigh all of the evil in the world? Is it really necessary for God to allow so much evil? Now, this will be a little technical, but these questions make a false assumption on the way that the parts relate to the whole. By the parts, I'm referring to individual instances of evil, and by the whole, I'm referring to God's overall plan for the world. When you ask a question like, can the good outweigh the bad, you are balancing off all of the good parts against all of the bad parts. But this is not the biblical view of how the parts relate to the whole. This is where I would like to put forward an idea that have been put forward by people like Roderick Chisholm, Marilyn McCord Adams, and Trent Doherty, which is the defeat condition. This means that when God uses evil and suffering in order to foster saints, this evil is defeated in their lives by being overcome, redeemed, and transformed into the larger whole. Here's a good illustration that Marilyn McCord Adams uses in her book. Take a look at Monet's Rouen Cathedral. In the middle of the painting, there are splotches of green and black and brown. And if I were just to zoom in on these parts only, I doubt anybody would call it beautiful. These splotches, however, are redeemed or defeated by their incorporation into the whole painting. Now, the painting isn't beautiful because the good parts outweigh the bad parts, or the beautiful brushstrokes outnumber the bad brushstrokes, but rather the painting is beautiful because even the ugliest color on the canvas plays a part in the overall beauty of the painting. Furthermore, it is irrelevant on whether or not these bad colors are necessary to the painting, as long as they are incorporated in a way that adds value to the whole. So if my opponent spends any time tonight in this debate questioning the necessity of specific instances of evil, he's missing the mark. My claim is not that every single instance of evil is necessary, but rather that evil is defeasible, meaning it can be overcome and redeemed. It seems to me in order for Coco to win this debate, he must do one of the following. Either demonstrate that it's impossible for God to have a reason for allowing evil, or provide a single instance of an indefeasible evil, an evil that cannot be overcome or redeemed. If Coco is unable to provide either of these things, it seems completely reasonable to hold that the existence of evil is fully compatible with a God whose desire it is to create a world in which saints are fostered and evil is defeated.
Perfect. And you are perfect on my timer. I don't know about yours. So I feel like you should get bonus points, but I'm not a judge for good reasons, so... So, hopefully, you are able to hear both the positions that were given by both of our interlocutors. And if you missed it, a quick summary. Coco has essentially stated that the problem of evil is a problem for the Christian God due to the types and amounts of evil in our world. Meanwhile, Brody has rebutted generally with the, and I hope if I'm misrepresenting you, please correct me, with the general take that while there are these evils, they aren't, quote, insurmountable evils, as in they can be solved or remedied in some way. And a truly evil world would lack all possible, or any remedy to these, or have evils without any remedy. Is that a good way to put both of your stances before we move into main rebuttals? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, sorry if I'm not doing it full justice. Like I said, if you want more to know about these people's positions, follow them, like, share, etc., etc. Moving into rebuttals, since we first opened with Coco, we will allow Brody to begin his argument by making a rebuttal to the thesis and or thesis statements that Coco placed forth in his opener. Brody, if you once again want to take the stage for a 5-minute rebuttal.
Yeah. So Coco brought up the idea of two different kinds of evils, which is an inscrutable evil and a gratuitous evil. An inscrutable evil is evils that seem to have no reason. We can't think of a reason why they would exist. A gratuitous evil is one that actually has no reason. Now, I would agree that inscrutable evils do exist. There are plenty of things that I see in my daily life that don't seem to have any grand purpose, that seem pointless. But to go as far as to say there are such things as gratuitous evil is too big of a leap. And I would grant that there's no evidence whatsoever for a gratuitous evil. This is like a thought exercise. It's a hypothetical. So maybe later in this debate, Coco can actually give me an example of a gratuitous evil, or what I would call a non-defeasible evil, an evil that has no purpose, no meaning, cannot be redeemed. Until he's able to actually provide an example of this, I'm just going to chalk this up as a hypothetical thought exercise that I see no evidence for. Coco brought up that his response to the soul-building response that I'm actually giving is that one creation would serve as collateral damage for another creation. Like, imagine, like the example he gave of putting one kid down so the other kid could walk on top of him. Or I thought these were great examples, but they don't match the idea of soul building that I'm put forward. Soul building in saint fostering is at the benefit of the individual who is going through the suffering. So if one person is going through suffering, we know this. People develop things, especially relationship to God, when they face trials in their lives. This is what building muscle looks like. This is what training for anything hard looks like. You go through suffering and it produces character, produces perseverance. And that is the argument I'm putting forward. Not that God is using one person's suffering to build another necessarily, but that us as individuals can be built into saints by going through suffering and trials ourselves. He brought up the idea that it would be unjust to punish babies for the actions of their parents. But again, this is not the point that I'm making. This is missing the mark. And I know that he gave his opening statement first, so he couldn't have known, but I am not saying that the reason people go through suffering is as a punishment. I'm saying that suffering is a thing that exists in our world. Evil exists, and God allows it to exist because he knows it'll develop our character, mature us, and produce virtues inside of us. Finally, he brought up the example of Abraham and Isaac, saying there must be less painful ways to generate soul building. I don't know if Coco has actually read the entire story of Abraham, but Abraham's life was full of suffering. Not just this one interchange he had with God, but he was called to leave his homeland, go into the land of Canaan. When he gets there, there's a famine in the land. He's got family conflict with Lot, and he actually has to risk his life to save Lot. The list goes on and on. Abraham had a very difficult life. So I think even for someone like him, this process was necessary to develop these good virtues inside of him. I hear this response. You're saying there must be some less painful or less, not as bad of a way. But again, this is pointing out that putting forward this assumption that these sufferings are in some way indispensable or necessary, rather than the idea I'm putting forward is that they can be defeated. Like the painting I put, these dark colors aren't necessary for this painting. He could have painted it without it. But when they are redeemed into the larger whole, it makes sense. It gives value to the larger whole, and these evils are defeated. The same evils in Abraham's life, and I would argue even the examples you gave of the most atrocious diseases. You said one was the worst disease you've ever heard of. You have to make the claim and defend it that even someone who's suffering from the worst disease imaginable could not look back on their life and say, you know what, this shaped who I am and this was worth it, and that God can't redeem that. And I would like to point to one example as my time is running out. Someone like Viktor Frankl who was a Holocaust survivor, goes on to write Man's Search for Meaning, where he talks about that the suffering in his life actually contributed to the overall good, and that it was necessary for the character that he developed. So, and this is not a unique situation. Many saints look back on the suffering of their life as a necessary part to to grow virtues, including some of the worst diseases. So that's my rebuttal.
Thank you. And with a good amount of time on the clock remaining, moving back, we will jump right back into Coco, who will be giving his own rebuttal or counter statements to Brody's thesis. Coco, if you wish to take the stage,
Okay.
because sadly I can't thrust you upon it.
Oh.
By the way, while we're getting Coco set up, to the audience, remember, like, share, and drop a follow to both Brody and Coco, as well as any number of our many judges on the panels who will be introduced later once judging begins. Anyway, I would like to give Coco the stage for his 5-minute rebuttal against Brody. Coco, if you wish, I can either time you, give you a countdown, or I can start the timer on your first word.
You can just tell me when to start.
Okay. You will begin in 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, so I heard what Brody had to say for his opening statement. He's going to emphasize on the fact that that evil is part of painting like a more beautiful picture. That it's the darker shades of the painting that he showed us. It's going to contribute to the whole. If that's the case, well, God didn't really create that world to begin with, right? He placed Adam and Eve in this perfect garden. So God didn't initially put everybody in the painting that Brody is even suggesting. And for the soul building, he's saying that like that these evils, these things that people suffer through, it makes them saints. It's supposed to bring them to sainthood. But God, in doing that, takes the risk that they won't join into sainthood. You often hear this quote from like Christians that God won't give you more than you can handle, right? But we do acknowledge and we do witness. I can't say the word on TikTok, but self-unalivement rates, especially in the religious community, especially for people who are homosexual or don't really fit in to what Christianity puts as like the ideal human being, right? There's a lot of like self-unalivement in that community. And also it just begs the question, like for people who are born with, let me look at my notes very briefly. For people who are born with conditions such as the condition that I mentioned in my opening statement, epidermolysis bullosa, right? Where essentially a kid is born unable to take showers or hug somebody. Could this encourage the kid? Could the kid find a way to like tough it out and become like a saint via these struggles? We've seen many people who have taken their struggles and turned to God and found a way to make good of it, right? But we've also seen many people go into dark areas of their life. We've seen people depart from Christianity. This is a very common thing that happens in Christianity. A lot of atheists spend their time praying to God and trying to overcome their issues and become this saint per se, only to really depart from the religion and find the religion not to be real. People are departing from Christianity and going to Islam, going to atheism, going to agnosticism, spiritualism, right? So this evil doesn't always produce sainthood. And would it even be necessary if it's just producing the opposite effect of what God wants? A question is like, could there even be another way than making somebody be born suffering and having such a condition as not being able to touch anything or play or shower? How is that building them? How is that going to make them a saint? Is that even necessary? Or are there other ways of doing that? And one thing in Brody's opening statement is that these evils are very important for like developing character traits, but there are other ways of developing character traits. For example, God could personally come down and tell us stories about acts of bravery or provide us with books that teach us acts of bravery. All of us have read a book and we've felt the fear of the characters that we read about.
45.
All of us have played video games and we've seen the character about to unalive, and we felt like the risk that was at hand. We can understand what it means to be brave, understand what it means to have compassion via stories rather than like experiences that are going to be traumatic most of the time, are going to cause like damage between us, other people. There are other ways with less suffering that could be used for people to like develop these characteristics that God wants us to develop. And especially when it comes to compassion, God could create us with some of these characteristics. God could create us with compassion, bravery, and not have us have to go through these trials to develop these certain characteristics. So there's just other ways of doing this. And for some reason, God wants us to put us through these ways that are really traumatic and like hurt individuals. Aside from that, I think that's going to conclude my rebuttal.
Did you say that concludes your opening statement? Sorry, I cut out for a second.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Now that we've moved on, or have gotten through, I should say, the rebuttals of both people, we will now move on into cross-examination, where each person is allowed up to 10 minutes to ask the other questions about their take and press them, trying to find holes in their thesis statement and or supporting data. We will start, assuming this is okay with you, with Coco, who just gave his rebuttal. Coco, if you would like to take the stage to give your 10 minutes of cross-examination on Brody's position, then you may take the stage now.
Okay, so first off, I'm gonna ask Brody just to establish like some characteristics. Would you believe that your God is all powerful, at least in the sense that he can actualize things that follow the laws of logic and are logically consistent with his character?
Yes.
Okay, and then would you say that God is omniscient, all-knowing? He knows past, present, and future propositions?
Yeah.
And would you say that God executes perfect justice and is perfectly just?
Yeah.
Would you say that God is all loving? He loves all of his creation?
I would.
So what would you say about, you said that the suffering and the evil that occurs in our world, it's supposed to be for sainthood. It's supposed to build people into religious or saints according to God. What would you say to God knowing that some of the struggles that people are going to go through are going to be the reason why they leave Christianity and even hate God in some instances, and yet still creates the person putting them through these trials and errors?
Well, I think I would push back a little on the framing that God is putting people through these terrors or these horrors rather than God is allowing them to happen. But I think that soul fostering is not threatened by people choosing to leave God. I think it actually makes God more loving that he would allow people to walk away rather than force them to stay with him.
Well, actually, I would actually disagree with that. Like, I would say God is putting people through stuff, because what would you say to a kid that's born in Detroit and is in an area that is highly populated by like gangs and rivalries, and he wakes up to like bullet sounds firing off in the alleyway? God is in control of souls and what bodies they go to and what environments they're going to end up in, and he chooses to put souls and kids in those environments.
Well, are you suggesting that God makes it so that people that were born in the inner city of Detroit are born without souls?
What do you mean by born without souls?
Well, you're saying God would be unjustified in allowing a soul to be created in this horrible situation. So if two people get together and make a kid, are you saying it would be better if they were born without a soul?
Couldn't God have kids born in different situations other than situations in which they would be in danger? There are also kids that are just born in native tribes off in the wilderness that have to like deal with like the forces of nature and probably like not the best conditions there too.
Yeah, so I think God is completely justified in allowing people of all demographics, incomes, poverty levels to procreate. I think that if someone's in a really poor position in their life, they're, you know, God's not going to make them infertile and not allow a kid to be born there, because even being born in the worst situation possible, that evil can still be defeated and overcome. That person could end up just fine. They're not doomed for all of eternity. There's plenty of examples. Some of our most favorite icons and celebrities have been born in like inner city Chicago and stuff like that. So I just don't think God would be justified in stopping those people from creating kids.
Yeah, but would you say that would you say that yeah, some people can be successful being born in bad neighborhoods, but that's like one of like the thousands of people that are born in bad neighborhoods. You can look at statistics. A lot of people born in like really impoverished neighborhoods end up getting into like drugs or gangs and stuff like that. So being born in a bad situation doesn't always entail that you're going to end up doing great things or becoming like a great individual. And God does have people born in really poor and impoverished situations that are bad. God puts people in bad situations. And would that be like something that a loving God would do? Like having a kid born in Africa and having to deal with onchocerciasis, which is a disease that like blinds children. Would that be an environment a loving God would put a kid in?
Yeah, I'm still having a problem with the framing that God is putting these kids in this position. I believe that people have been given the freedom to procreate, and I can create. I can go ahead.
But couldn't God create a world without onchocerciasis or without gang violence, right? I know most theists are going to say that like, oh, that's impeding on free will, right? But God could have a world where people choose to make decisions, but the consequence doesn't entail. Just like the story of Abraham, where he went up the mountain to sacrifice his son, but right before he did it, an angel stopped him. This could be the instance for every single bad thing that happens in our world.
Yeah, so two questions there. The first, God could absolutely create a world without, you know, any given disease that you want to bring up. And my point is not that these instances of evil, these diseases themselves, are necessary to build people up. My point is that they are defeasible. They can be overcome. They can be defeated. And that doesn't even mean that everybody who has them will develop these saint-like virtues and become, you know, the most virtuous people and follow after God. God still gives people the freedom to ignore him and have their own way, but he's justified in giving people the option, the defeat condition, to overcome any struggles they have and then live in eternity with him, no matter if you're born in Africa or in LA, you know?
So given that, let's say some of the people who were raised religious and end up like so, and God give them less to make it a little bit easier for themselves and make it more able for them to overcome those problems. It would seem as if God gave them too much.
Wait, the beginning of that question got cut off. Could you just restate it one more time?
So like there are going to be certain individuals that are raised in religious environments that end up like self-unaliving themselves, right? And these trials are supposed to make them stronger or make them accomplish sainthood. So like why couldn't God give them a little bit less? And it would still be a challenge for them and they could like overcome it and accomplish maybe the sainthood. But it would seem as if God gave them a lot, so much that they really couldn't handle it, not to any fault of their own. Life just gets really, really heavy for these individuals. What would you say to those people?
Yeah, I mean, those are tragic situations, absolutely. But I think all God's responsibility is to provide a way for these evils to be redeemed and to be overcome. And he has done that. And many, many people I know personally who were suicide, sorry, I don't know if I can say that word, but who were on the brink of unaliving themselves, have had encounters with Christ where that evil, that part in their life actually becomes incorporated into the whole of their life, and they wouldn't wish it away. Yeah.
The thing is like God, you said God knows future propositions, right?
Yes.
So God knows that like certain people are going to be born with lives that are going to be like very difficult to overcome certain challenges and accomplish sainthood. And these people are going to leave the faith, or these people are going to self-unalive. And he knows all of this before he creates these individuals. So why would God still proceed to create these individuals?
Yeah, so this just doesn't account like for, if you look at the statistics, the most impoverished countries, the people that struggle the most to meet their basic needs, are the most religious countries. So clearly the existence of poverty and the existence of these like terrible situations are something that actually pull people toward God. So I don't think we can blame, real quick, I don't think we can blame somebody's rejection for God on their circumstances.
That's not really answering my question. My question is like, you have individuals who are born in really bad situations and they end up like unaliving themselves or turning away from God, right? God knows future propositions. He knows that he's going to give them too much, and it's going to be too much for them, and it's going to turn them away from him, or it's going to cause them to take their own life. Why would God still proceed to give them just that much amount of suffering? Why not a little bit less? Why
Yeah,
not even,
I don't. This is just not the Christian. You're attacking a straw man by saying that God is giving them more than they can handle, or He's giving them X, Y, and Z. I don't think that God is the one that initiates evil, like moral evils against these people. I think this is a consequence of mankind. And but my point, real quick, in bringing up the impoverished country example,
God
is
doing
I
that?
don't. I don't think it's fair to blame someone's disbelief on their situations. I think disbelief is something else.
God created people who are going to be born in Africa, who are going to deal with onchocerciasis, who are going to starve from starvation and unalive. Some people, the weight of life get too much for them, and I'm pretty sure that we can check the self-unalivement rates in Africa, and it does occur in Africa. What is to be said about those people? God knew that they were going to go through these struggles. God knew that it was going to be too much for them, and they end up self-unaliving. And God created a world in which that would be something that happened in our
Yeah.
reality. He knew
So
this beforehand
so
and created that, and thought that
yes.
they would be better off, rather than creating an alternate world where they could still overcome these challenges, but not have to go through such intense challenges in order to gain some kind of sainthood.
Okay, so this is a difference in our views, Coco, because from a protological sense, just viewing this life, it looks like that person's life is full of more suffering they can bear. But from an eschatological sense, this life is only a small fraction of the entire existence, all of eternity, right? So someone could have the most horrific life here on earth and be redeemed in an eschatological sense, where after life they look back and say that was really terrible, but it's worth it because I got to suffer with Christ, like Romans 8:9 says, we share in his suffering so that we can rejoice in his glory. So I think these are totally defeatable evils.
How are people going to be? How do you know that there's a guarantee that people are going to be redeemed after all of the evil that they?
I'm not saying there is a guarantee. I think that God leaves the door open for people to leave him.
Doesn't that make the point irrelevant?
Last 10 seconds. Please let this last train of conversation be your last.
Okay, so wouldn't that be wouldn't it be pointless in the end? You're saying that the suffering that they go through might be redeemed, but we don't even know if it's going to be redeemed. So that point doesn't really stick. Someone might live a life of suffering and not get paid for that. It would just be useless suffering. We don't know if they're going to be redeemed. And also, doesn't Christianity say that people who commit...
I'm sorry, Coco. Just to keep it fair, you are, I hate to say, gish galloping because you are past your time. I just wanted you to wrap up because the 10 minutes are up. Unless Brody is willing to give you a little bit more time or wanting to, but I assume you want to stick to the format.
If you want to finish that question, as long as I have time to answer it, I think...
Yeah, we can add some minutes to the clock, and I can add minutes to your cross-examination as well.
Okay,
if you want, we can
just do this
by
one
a
question.
Minute. Yeah, so I'll add a minute, so it's 11 minutes each for the cross. So you are given an additional minute, Coco. So you can start in 3, 2, 1, go.
I would just say that God knows beforehand that people are going to struggle. God knows beforehand that people aren't going to be able to handle it, and certain people are going to unalive themselves due to not because they're weak. I'm not saying any of that. It's just that life is a lot for certain people, right? You're saying that people are going to get paid for their suffering, but there's no guarantee to that. We don't know that. So literally that point doesn't really matter because there might be people who suffer and don't get paid for their suffering, right? And also, isn't it a popular belief for Christianity that if you self-unalive, that's a sin, and actually you would be punished for that. So people who are suffering and decide that they want to self-unalive and they don't want to be here anymore, those people would get sent to hell essentially by the God that loves them.
Okay, so I'll give... Oh, sorry, I was just going to say you have a chance to reply. I'm not going to time your reply because the second you've kind of made a reply, I'm going to kind of cut it off there, just so we can move on to your cross-examination, or your opportunity to cross-examine Coco.
I would say that I think it's completely reasonable to believe that God is good and just for giving the offer of salvation, redemption, and defeat over anyone's evil who would accept the offer, knowing that some people will reject it. He is still a good and just God for offering it. And as far as the self-unaliving thing, there is no Bible verse that says that. There are different interpretations, but so I'm not going to put my stick in the ground one way or another, but it's completely plausible that these people have redemption in the afterlife.
Okay, now moving on, we will have another 11 minutes because of the extra additional bonus we've been granted. Praise the Lord, as Brody, I assume, would say, or not. Maybe that was sacrilegious. I'm sorry. And so now, as Coco has had time to question and try and poke holes in Brody's worldview, he will have the same to do to Coco. So, Brody, if you want to take the stage, i.e., magnify oneself, and then you may start your cross examination of Coco. I can either start it on your first word, or I can give you a countdown. Either one.
All right, you can start. I'll just start talking. Yeah, Coco, do you think it's possible that God has a reason for allowing evil in the world?
I think it's possible, but I don't have any compelling evidence. He hasn't provided me with any reason as to why certain suffering should happen. So yeah, it's a possibility, just like it's a possibility that Bigfoot could exist.
Mhm.
I
So,
wouldn't-
so you're saying it's not a like the existence of evil and the existence of God is not a logical contradiction. You're making more of a probability claim. Is that what this is?
I am. Oh, sorry, background noise. Sorry, can we pause the time?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can pause for a quick second while Coco gets everything in the background under control. Just for note, I'm going to add 30 seconds because I assume Coco just has to get something done in the background. While we're taking this short break, don't forget, like, comment, subscribe. Wait, that's YouTube. Like, follow, share. Okay, look at this Coco boy, this guy in the top left with his little head. Smack his little head. Okay, give him some likes. Same with his bro. Look at his hair. Look at how majestic this man's hair is. You telling me that this isn't a good debate with this much hair?
Okay, we can.
Anyway, Coco, is the background noise fine now, or?
Yeah, we can continue.
Oh, okay, yeah. So, I added 30 seconds to the clock. If you wanted to start rephrasing what you just started with, Brody.
Okay, so I asked if there was a possibility that God has a reason. You said that there is no evidence for it, but it's possible. So I said that this is not a logical contradiction. You're not running the logical problem of evil, correct?
No, today I'm running the evidential problem of evil. So God is described a certain way, and like what we see in the world is something that wouldn't really like match up with like what how God is exactly described. I can give an analogy, right? It's like
No,
let's say-
I think I got you. I'm just gonna keep going with my questions. I understand what you're saying. So you mentioned that this God is incompatible with evil, correct? That's what you said due to the evidentiary problem?
yeah, I would say that.
Okay, so can you give me like a formal argument, like a premise, conclusion, or something like that, that would show me that this God is incompatible with evil?
I would say maybe an argument I could give would be that is a tough one. An argument that I could possibly give is if God is all loving, if God is all loving, if God exists, evil wouldn't exist. Evil does exist, hence God doesn't exist.
Well, the thing I'm looking for you to give an argument for is the first premise. Not, I understand that you want to get to God doesn't exist, but I'm looking for you to give me an argument. Why is God incompatible with evil?
I would say God. Well, like during my opening statement, you said that God is all good. You said that God is all loving. Would you say that God desires evil, or does he not desire evil?
I'm just asking for like a formalized argument. How you established the first premise of that if God is good, he wouldn't allow evil. What's like? Why should I believe that?
Because God doesn't want evil, right? God's plan is he wants what's best for his creation. God is all loving. God is all good. He wants only good things, unless evil is something that he can't really like get what he wants without, or it's a necessity or something.
Okay, so do you think God could have a reason for allowing something he doesn't want?
Yes, but again, I don't have like any evidence of that. It could be the other way, that God allows bad things to happen for no reason at all. We don't know God. We don't have access to his reasons. We don't have access to his brains. Only what he's told us.
So if we have no access to these thoughts, then how could you possibly make a probabilistic claim or say that like God probably doesn't exist due to the amount of evil in the world?
Well,
If we have no knowledge.
I never really made like a probability. Well, I'm more so just looking at the evidence that's presented around us, right? So God is described with these character traits of being like all loving, wanting good things, wanting the best for His creation, and yet we live in a world where there's so many things that God has created that do harm to His creation and do not promote the well-being of His creation. There's even laws in the Bible that God has presented that don't really promote the well-being of His creation and seem unnecessary.
Do you think God could allow evil as a type without needing every single token of evil? Do you know what I mean by that?
Elaborate.
Yeah, so when I talk about like a type, like a football player is a type, Peyton Manning is a token. So like he's like a specific example. Do you think God could be justified in allowing the type evil, as in like the whole of evil, to exist without having to necessarily require every single instance of evil?
Um, I'm guessing he could, but that would be more of an argument towards me, maybe, because like, are you saying that he would allow like lesser evils?
No, not necessarily. So let me give you a hypothetical, okay? Or like an example. Do you think that a father is unjust or unloving for teaching their kid to ride a bike, knowing that their kid will fall and scrape their knee? They have that knowledge that their kid, like at some point, will probably fall.
Um, um, in that example, no, the father wouldn't be bad for that, but that's also kind of irrelevant because like I could ask questions about like how is like a kid being born in an area with onchocerciasis
Well,
the
I'm
same.
asking the question. This is my cross exam. So if you're saying that that's not a problem, that that's not a like, the father can still be just and loving for allowing their child to experience some sort of suffering in order for the betterment of them, like learning a bike. Do you not see that there's value that is added to the whole process through that suffering?
Yeah, but you'd have to explain how someone being born with a condition that's fatal would add value to their life.
Do you think that let me give you two hypotheticals here. So there's one hypothetical child, their parents let them play outside, they play sports, they go to high school, all these things, and they experience all the emotions and pain and everything that goes along with that. Child two in this hypothetical, there's parents put them in a futuristic experience machine where they are able to only experience pleasure and comfort their entire life. My question my question for you is, which child do you think would be more developed?
Um, I don't really think that argument's like relevant because
Which child?
well, God could just create the children already developed with the characteristics that He wants in those children.
That's
I
not my
don't.
question though. I'm asking in my hypothetical, which child do you think would be more developed, more mature, I guess?
Re-ask your question again.
Yeah, one child experiences life normally, goes outside, gets hurt, has breakups, pain, all these things. The second child is in an experience machine where they only experience pleasure and comfort their entire life. Or maybe I can ask, which child do you think would be more virtuous?
Um, Again, God could just create those children with the attributes that He desired for them to have. There's no need for them to have to go through those things. But I would say that the child that goes through things would probably be more developed or virtuous.
I
But
would
again,
agree, Coco.
yeah,
Now,
but
you
that
go
wouldn't
ahead.
answer for children with diseases or things that are overbearing. You'd have to explain how like children born with cancer as babies, how that's going to develop them or make them like a better person. You have all this suffering that's happening in the world,
Do
but
you
there's
wait,
no.
Coco? Do you think that people born with cancer who grow from it and who have that as like a part of their life, do you think it's impossible that this could be redeemed or this could be like contributed to the overall good in their life?
No, but there's also the case that it's not redeemed. It's
Okay,
also.
so this would be a defeasible evil then, because it has the possibility of being overcome and redeemed, right?
But it's also not defeasible in some cases, and God knows that it's not defeasible.
How can you explain that to me? How would it not be defeasible in some cases?
So you said in your statement that like certain evils are gonna allow people to grow and achieve like sainthood, and it's defeasible because they overcome it and become better. But there are some cases where some people get cancer and they go into a dark place and become the worst version of themselves. They become like they become people who view the world and um, treat other people worse because of the cancer that they go through. So yes, it could have someone coming out better on the other end, but it could also have somebody coming out worse on the other end. And God knows this is going to happen beforehand and still actualizes it. And that would be
Okay, but you agree that these are defeasible evils, though. I don't know how you can say that this is an indefeasible thing. Like, do you really think it's impossible for some people to overcome these? Like, getting a diagnosis, for example. You think like that's off the table? Like, it's impossible for them to overcome that?
it's not impossible, but there are people who don't overcome it, and God still actualizes those people and lets them suffer and lets them go into dark places. And I don't really see him helping.
So
them.
is your point that God would, in those cases, step in and prevent that evil from happening? A good God would.
There are many options you could go with. God could just be a guiding hand, visiting them maybe once a month and talking to them, giving them advice, giving them words of encouragement. But we don't see that. What we do see is other human beings reaching out. That's humans. That's not God. There's no
Yeah.
evidence of God helping
I
them.
hear you. So, like, imagine this, okay? Imagine that your parents give you an opportunity to watch your, I don't know if you have siblings, but hypothetically, your little brother. And he's like, I'm trusting you with this responsibility. I want you to learn how to be responsible, and I want you to, like, take care of your younger brother. But I'm also going to be sitting on the couch right next to you the entire time watching you, giving you, as you would say, encouragement and pointers and all this stuff like that. Does this responsibility like have the same meaning as if this child was left alone to do their duty without the help of their parent?
But that's not even what I'm like suggesting, right? Like I'm suggesting God could come down once a month, right? And you would still have a time period in which the person could make their own choices and develop by themselves. I'm not asking God to be a helicopter parent, but what we see is God's not really a parent showing up in any instance to help any of these people.
Coco, if God came to your house and showed up, do you think you'd have a choice on whether or not to believe in him?
Did the people who encountered Jesus have a choice on whether or not to believe in him? Jesus showed up for them.
Absolutely. Jesus' own disciple doubted him.
Yeah. So like, God could come to my house and reveal himself to me, and I would still have the choice to turn away from him, just like the people who saw him multiply fish and bread, raise Lazarus from the dead, walk on water, also had the ability to turn away from him. They weren't abandoned of their freedom of choice.
I understand, but don't you see like a conflict of interest here? If God wants us to make meaningful decisions and have responsibility and develop these virtues, but he shows up, like you said once a month, but earlier you're saying he should stop any instance of evil like this. Why doesn't he step in like he did with Abraham? You don't see like a...
20 seconds, try and wrap it up.
So did God not want the people that he visited?
You're answering my questions with questions, dude.
So yeah, but it's like God showed up for other people and they still developed and made choices. So it's like, did God have a different plan for them versus people in 2024 there?
Who did God step in every time they try to do something evil? I don't see that anywhere.
Not even every time, but just like in certain instances, right? Feeding the Jews by multiplying fish.
Okay, I'm gonna cut it off there because we are about 30 seconds over. Now, another quick reminder to those watching, all 100 and about 20 of you, plus minus whatever statistical, this isn't science, this is debate, who cares? Well, science is part of it. Anyway, who cares? Next on, we'll be moving on to our final conclusions, but just before that, I do want to once again remind you all to like, comment, share, and follow both our host, Coco, and Brody, his opponent, as well as all the other people on the panel who will be introduced later as final judges. Now, as a quick run through, and also, I'm sorry, I should probably give something visual to look at to a certain degree while you're hearing me talk, because it's probably more interesting that way. But, so yes, here's like a little bear thing. Anyway, so what we've gone through so far is openers, where we went over the main thesis statements on the problem of evil. We went through the rebuttals, and we have just finished cross-examinations. We'll be now moving into our final conclusions, which will be 3 minutes each from both Coco up here and Brody over beside Robbie right here. The point of the final conclusions will, as they say, conclude and wrap up each debate opponent's full argument before judges are introduced and decide to make their choices on who they think won. And now we will finally jump right in, and since Brody and we will start off with Brody's final conclusion. No, sorry, we'll start off with Coco's final conclusion because he opened up first. Coco, if you wish to conclude your total argument, I will be giving you 3 minutes. When you're ready, I can either start when you say your first word, or what's it called again? When I give you go. Yeah, that's it. So if you want to just like come up here onto the great scenic background I've set for you to say your final conclusion.
Yeah, you can put me on the big screen now. You can start. So, first and foremost, I want to say, like, I really appreciate the debate. I love Brody. Brody's awesome. My friend always. When it comes to this debate, main points that I got from this debate is that Brody's going to say that, like, he basically said that, like, evil can produce sainthood, can develop people. Yes, I think, like, in some cases it can, but we'd have to completely ignore the cases where it doesn't. God is all-knowing. God is all-loving. He loves his creatures. So why would he loves his creation. So why would he see future events, right, of individuals who life was going to be too much for them and they were going to unalive, like I mentioned in our debate, and still yet choose to put them through that? God's going to test everybody, put them through trials and errors, and some errors are just going to be too much for certain individuals, and they're gonna like self-unalive. They're gonna turn away from God. They're gonna go and do horrific things in the world, like Schmittler and tons of religious leaders who have done horrific things in history. Those things kind of happen given their struggles and whatever it is that they're going through. I'm not asking that God becomes a helicopter parent, as that was some of the question that was being asked of me in the cross-examination. I'm suggesting that a loving God could do things in other ways, right? He could lessen the suffering of some that he sees in the future are gonna like self-unalive or leave Christianity, or he could even be there for them for maybe a moment in time. Hell, a week out of a year wouldn't be like too much. A day out of a month wouldn't be too much. I'm not asking God to baby us, but there are other ways that would be more compatible with him being like all loving. What we see is like a world filled with suffering, no help from God, no interaction. And people are born with weights that they can't carry that are too much, that are not going to produce sainthood. So I don't really see the point of that. Why would God would still instantiate that if he actually loved his creation? Brody's saying that like suffering, produces sainthood, but there are plenty of babies that are born and will unalive before the age of 5. No sainthood is produced there. Those are evils that God produces. I don't see how onchocerciasis in Africa, that literally just exists to blind children, is producing sainthood. I don't see how the disease that I mentioned, where showers are painful to one because it causes scars and damaging to their body, I don't see how that's producing sainthood. And again, these things can lead down dark paths. With that, I would say that there's a lot of things that God instantiates, and if it's for the sake of sainthood, it doesn't really produce that outcome. There is the risk that it's not going to produce that outcome. So what's the point? Especially God sees that this is going to happen, still instantiates it. Why would he do that if he loved his creation? If you were a father and you saw that, like, you were going to put your kid on the bike and he was never going to learn how to ride the bike and he was just going to keep falling, hitting, and suffering, why would you still put him on the bike and tell him
3 minutes over, please wrap it up.
So I would say that evil is existent, but it doesn't always produce sainthood, and God shouldn't have instantiated it, knowing that it wasn't going to produce sainthood and it was going to produce failure.
Okay, and transitioning into Brody's final statement / conclusions to summarize his argument, we will give him 3 minutes. Either I can give you the countdown like I could give Coco or have been before, or once again on your first word.
Coco did not meet my challenge I gave him at the beginning of the debate. Unfortunately, I gave him 2 options, 2 ways to win this debate. Either prove that it's logically impossible for God to have a reason, which he at the beginning of cross-exam said was not his point, or 2, provide a single instance of a gratuitous or an indefeasible evil. Now, Coco listed off a lot of things. He says, I don't see how these things, he kept saying that over and over. I don't see how this child who is suffering can produce a saint. I don't see how blah, blah, blah. If you remember at the beginning of the debate, Coco referenced 2 different kinds of evil. What he is describing when he starts his sentence with I don't see how is an inscrutable evil, not a gratuitous evil. This is an evil which I can't identify a reason, right? But he still has not provided a single instance of an indefeasible evil. Now, he tried to say that some trials are just too much for people, but I believe this is just stripping people of their agency. Like, are you really claiming that due to someone's situation, they have no option when God has made the option to be reconciled to himself available to all people? In fact, my own aunt had a disease that she had when she was very young, and the hospital said, you better start planning a funeral because she's not going to survive this. However, she survived it, was healed, and is now a better woman because of it. And she wouldn't wish this experience away because it made her who she is. Now, your main point, Coco, that you kept referring to was that not all people are going to become saints. I agree with that 100%. I'm not saying every single instance of evil is indispensable or is necessary. What I'm saying is that the possibility of these evils being defeated is a reality in every case of the most horrendous evil. And also, there's a lot of avid Christians that hold to a view, I don't know if you've talked to them before, of universal reconciliation. It seems to me that this, if I was a Christian that happened to hold that view that all people end up being saved, this would undercut your argument completely. And if that is a logically coherent view of Christianity, then in the end, in an eschatological sense, every single person ends up having their evils defeated. There's no such thing as a person who's separated from God. I don't personally hold that view, but it is a logically coherent view that a lot of avid Christians hold to. And it seems like you have no argument if that view is correct. And this just further shows that evil is not a contradiction. It's not a problem. It's not anything against the goodness, the power, or the omniscience of our God. Finally, you also, your second point that I really kept noticing you say was that why couldn't God just create people this way in the first place? Why couldn't God create us compassionate, brave, etc.? This assumes that saint fostering is only instrumentally valuable. Like, the only reason why God would want to foster saints is because of the end goal that's valuable. But I would argue that saint fostering is intrinsically value. There's intrinsic value in people triumphing over evil. There's intrinsic value to people growing and learning from their mistakes. And again, I don't need to show that every single instance of suffering is necessary, but that God is justified in creating a world with evil. He's justified in creating the type. For your example of someone riding a bike, right? If I knew my kid was always going to fall, why would I teach him to ride a bike? God's not teaching one kid to ride a bike. He is creating an environment where people can learn to ride bikes. And he's justified in creating that environment or that possibility, to fit the metaphor. Whether or not every single fall is necessary or every single kid learns how to ride a bike. This is the environment God creates where saints can be fostered, where people can have meaningful responsibility.
You might want to wrap it up. You are the 3 minutes have kind of come, so you might want to wrap it
up. Then
up.
I'll hold it there. Then that's good.
Well, you've heard the arguments, folks, from both Coco and Brody, and while you're deciding amongst yourselves, so will the judges be deciding on a winner. Now, it would be boring just to, wait for their decision, so why not introduce them like superstars one at a time? First, in this corner, Just Jimothy. A prominent atheist debater on TikTok who knows quite a plethora about philosophy and religion. He has a background in architecture and is currently a commercial photographer, taking pictures of not only all of the moms he's banged, including yours, but all of the dads he's probably banged too. Jokes aside, would you like to say a little bit about yourself, Just Jim, as a judge?
No, I think that sums it up, minus the mom and dad part thing.
Okay, I'm sorry, didn't want to expose you like that. As for our next judge, let's actually switch between atheist and Christian judge here. We'll go with Bianchi? I'm sorry. Listen, I'm not white. That's my defense. I don't know how to say these names. Okay? I'm getting back to the white people for mispronouncing my name all my life. Okay? This is my defense. Also known as Real Rhetoric on TikTok, is a thoughtful and principled conservative, bringing a rich background of psychology, philosophy, and much more rhetoric to the judging panel and to TikTok in general. They have a bachelor's of science in psychology and have a deep understanding of human cognition, critical analysis, etc., etc. They have a decade, at least, of experience in competitive forensic debate, which they apply as the founder of Real Rhetoric Tutoring. His program focuses on classical style critical thinking and public speaking skills tailored for all levels of experience if you want to check it out. Is there anything that you want to say in specific? I can't say. I'm sorry. Listen, you gotta have to say your name yourself.
You got it right the first time. It's Bianchi. I'd just like to add that
Wait, like the mathematician?
I don't know the mathematician. I know the bicycle company and the holster company. Bianchi.
All right, then I'll never understand it. Never mind. This is a debate that no one will ever win. Go on with your description of yourself.
I was originally going to be using my actual account, which I'll leave a comment as. I have it pulled up on my computer. The only thing I'd like to add is that my experience is in formal debate, not in public forum like this. So in most of my judging criteria, I'm going to be preferring criteria from formal debates rather than conversational debates. That's pretty much it.
And would you at least like to tell us like your favorite food to make you a bit more personable?
No, I would not.
Okay, well you heard it here, folks. He's a cold, unfeeling robot. Now, from the top of the crop to the bottom of the barrel, we have the one, the only, Robbie. Sorry, there's so like I want I have to look up the notes on him. I jokingly say as there's probably none. No, there are notes. A lifelong atheist and a prominent debater on TikTok, the Robbie Rob is well known for his criticism, skepticism, and playful and inquisitive view of the modern world. He's an avid reader of Graham Oppie, Sam Harris, Christopher Hitchens, as well as a number of other philosophers and losers, including his best friend on TikTok, of course, Jim, just Jim, who together they do your mom and dad on the weekends. Anyway, Robbie is also the co-founder of the TLC Club that produces content that attempts to bridge different content creators together. Is there anything that you would like to say for yourself, Robbie?
No, thank you, Niels.
Okay. As we went from below, we are currently below and back up beyond to another Christian. We now have Case. Wait, yeah, Kaysen, right? Yeah, Kaysen, an electrician by day and a Spider-Man villain by night. Kaysen devotes himself to reading and studying large amounts of religion and philosophy. His particular areas of study include, of course, philosophy of religion and philosophy of time. He has been a Christian for 2 years, recently becoming a Roman Catholic. He's a well-known Christian debater on TikTok, and if you want to see any more of his things, you can always check out his TikTok page, where he regularly dispels misunderstandings of Christianity and such. He also has his YouTube channel, Kaysen the Christian, where you can sadly not find Jim and Robbie's videos, but instead something debatably as valuable, Kaysen's discussions on Christianity and philosophy. Is there anything that you want to say about yourself, Kaysen?
No, thank you. I'm good.
Yeah. And last but not least, a judge that defies all description, because as far as I'm fucking concerned, this guy broke out of Area 51. A mind so hard to analyze that he became a systems engineer just to figure it out himself, as well as a digital marketing strategist, with a background in crowd psychology. He is a fanatic and well interested and read in continental philosophy and has studied many different theological paradigms. He has self-authored and published books such as Ripples of Will and is a spiritual Luciferian Gnostic who adheres to theosophy as a base philosophy and framework. Now, what do those words mean? I have no idea. And if you want to know and why he calls himself a neo-deist, follow him and learn more and listen to the few words he may have to say about himself to describe or sell himself to the audience, which I'm sure he can do better than me given being a digital marketing strategist.
Nils, you are brilliant. I love you. The only thing I have to say is I'm happy to be here. I think this is a great forum for the investigation of things in a more coherent manner. So I think it's great.
Okay, I just want to point out to the audience, it is suspicious that he didn't refute the Area 51 claim. Saul is an alien. The truth is out there. Anyway, I assume, unless Justice Jimothy has come up at least with or the judges feel comfortable going through their conclusions, we can either take a small couple-minute break where we can ask the debaters some questions, have some ambiance, some fun for like 4 minutes, 3 minutes, whatever you need, or we can jump right into the judgments if you're all ready.
Introduce the debaters.
Did that in the beginning, moron. Did you not pay attention to your own debate?
Wait, did you read the introductions for the debaters?
Yeah, and I made better ones because, listen, I am the best introducer. Okay? You hired me for good reason.
Never mind. You're doing great.
Anyway, judges, are you guys ready for giving your judgments?
Yeah, I'm ready to go, man.
I'm ready.
Casey seems like he's ready. I'm ready as well. I don't know if Jim is or anybody else is.
Yep, I'm ready to go.
Are we looking for?
I'm ready as well.
Yep. Well, sounds like everyone is generally ready for their judgment. If Jim wants to go over his judgment, but just before he does that, if you want, or for the audience sake, it might be better just for the judges to judge and screw the rubric. There's a rubric for those who may want to ask the host after that was given to the judges that was agreed on beforehand by both debaters on how they wish for the debate to be judged. And so that is somewhat what the judges are going on. Anyway, sorry, Jim, you have the floor.
Yeah, sure. So do you want me to give the score? Do you want me to kind of give my analysis, or how are we doing this?
Generally, the main thing you have to give is just who you overall think won or did better in the debate, 1 or 0 binary choice, but you can explain any amount, whether it be the points or whatever, in how you got to that conclusion.
Yeah, sure. So we had 4 different categories that we were judging both interlocutors. Opening statements, rebuttals, cross-exam, and conclusion. And there were specific type of criteria for them. I think both interlocutors did really well in terms of being able to explain their position. But I think the edge overall in terms of the argumentation, kind of the way that the rebuttals were addressed, the way that opening statements were given, and the control of the cross-exam in order to be able to support the overall argument, as well as a conclusion to address both the rebuttals and support the view. I think that by a slight margin goes to Mark Brody, over Coco. I could go more granular into it if you want me to go one by one, but I gave overall scoring 38 out of 58 to Coco and 49 out of 58 to Brody.
Sounds good. Thank you for your judgment, Jim. And next we'll be moving on to he whose name I cannot pronounce, and so will not be named. Do you wish to give your little spiel on who won / did better?
Yeah, I do not have I have the numbers calculated for Coco. I did not finish filling out the rubric for Mark yet.
If you want, we can come back to you.
That's right. I have a decision.
Okay.
What made it the most difficult for me was they had a really good crossfire. I felt like the cross-examination kind of changed things. However, the deciding factor for me was that Mark gave two criteria at the beginning of his opening, actually towards the end of his opening speech. He said that Coco has to show that there are no instances of a redeemable evil, or that there is even one evil that could be considered gratuitous. Coco didn't really respond to that directly. I didn't hear one. I also didn't. I didn't think that he addressed it enough in any of his speeches, or present any examples in a way that could have addressed it. The whole thing kind of went unaddressed, and I would have left it alone, except Mark brought it up again in his closing statement, and I thought that that was probably, in terms of arguments, since he was the one on the attack, I thought it did a good job of wrapping up the round. Overall, it felt like the points presented by Coco were good, and I've heard them before, but they were not necessarily organic, or it seemed like they didn't quite get to what Mark was saying. There wasn't enough clash on that side. So overall, due to the fact that the criteria were not met or refuted, and because of the preponderance of evidence, I think I'm going to have to vote for Mark on this one.
Okay, next we'll go back to another atheist judge with Robbie Robb.
Hey, so I just want to say thanks for having me up. Thanks to the two, to Coco and Brody. I think it was a pretty good debate. So I did take a lot of notes for everything, but I'll just kind of go through the fast version of it. I actually thought Coco did a really good job with his opening. I think it flowed kind of well. I think he had some good points. I like that he defined his terms of things real fast. And I thought he gave really good examples. He gave also information like from the CDC and data points and stuff like that. I thought Brody did also exceptionally well with his opening. He gave a lot of really good points. Same thing. I like that he put the parts versus the whole, and that he had his picture, and it was kind of showing, like, if you look at the bigger picture type of a thing, things kind of come into focus more. I thought that was a very good visual. I would probably just edge out Coco on the opening for that, but I think it was extremely close. For rebuttals, the same thing. I think Coco did okay for some of it. I think Coco needed to be a little bit more direct on talking about Brody's points. I think he did not talk about Brody's points as much as he needed to, and kind of wasted some of his time away. Where I felt like where Brody was kind of more on point with addressing things and key points for stuff. So I gave the second part, the rebuttal, to Brody. As for the across, let's see, I have just some notes here. I think Brody, same thing. I think he gave really good points. He really addressed things. He asked really good questions. Let's see here. He asked Coco to give like premise argument. I felt like Coco really struggled in that he couldn't name something off the top of its head for the problem of evil. Brody had more control of the whole conversation too. I felt like for every dynamic of that whole encounter. So I gave that part to Brody as well. Same thing at the very end for the final conclusion going over. I think Coco did okay, but again, Coco wasn't very direct on some of his points. And I think he had a good example, but it didn't really address anything that Brody was addressing, where I kind of felt like Brody, again, kind of touched on the things that he wanted Coco to go over. I don't think Coco necessarily has to go over those things or disprove those things, but I don't think Coco addressed them whatsoever, really, or didn't give a good enough explanation for that stuff. So at the end of the day, I give it to Brody. It was Coco 10, Brody 48. I did an all or nothing for the categories.
Sounds good. Of course, we still have other judges on the back end as spares, sorry to say, but Kason, if you would like to give your judgment now.
Yeah, my judgment's not going to be nearly as in depth, but I do have the numbers for each person that I listed off. So I think they gave equally well opening statements. I gave them both a 7 out of 10. I'm going off the rubric we were using. I gave Coco a 9 out of 15 for his rebuttal, and I gave Brody a 12 out of 15 for his rebuttal. I gave Coco a 13 out of 20 for his cross-exam, and I gave Brody a 17 out of 20 for his cross-exam. And then I gave Coco an 8 out of 13 for his conclusion, and a Brody a 10 out of 13 for his conclusion, leaving Coco with a 37 out of 58 and Brody with a 46 out of 58.
Sounds good. And as the true final judge, of course, because our alien overlords are secretly controlling us all behind the scenes, Saul.
Okay, so I did break it down according to the rubric, each point. I'm going to start with Coco. So I think that the first piece of it were the points that were made. And Coco went into the inscrutable evil and the gratuitous evil. And I think that the reasoning that he gave for those were very good. So I gave 2 points for that. He then went into we're talking about the establishment of his position. And I think that he did establish his position pretty well. I gave him also 2 points for that. And then there was the overall preparation, which I think he was very prepared, showing that he was looking at the overall situation for the argument and even understanding the opposition. So there was 2 points given, and his delivery I thought was very good. That was 2 points. So overall, I gave an 8 out of 10 for his opening statement. When it came to the rebuttals to the opening statement for Coco, the ability to rebut the opposition's opening statement was one of the key criteria, which I gave a 3. I think that he did a good job in that regard. When it came to demonstrating a strong ability to rebut, I didn't feel that it was as strong, and I gave a 1. Did the debater seem to grasp the opponent's position correctly and fully comprehend it? I think that he did fully comprehend what was being presented by his opponent, and so I presented a 5. Were all of the opposing points addressed, and were the points that were addressed effectively and accurately? I think he addressed all of the points, and I believe that they were accurate, and I give a 5. And then, did it appear as if the debater came prepared for the possible arguments their opponent would make? I feel that he did come prepared for that, so I gave it 15. So it was a 15 out of 15 for that. For the cross-examination, which carries the bulk of the points here, the first criteria is the affirmative. Does he have the ability to ask leading questions and basically illegitimately deconstruct the opponent's stance? So I broke that into different points. I put 10 points for that. I think that would be very core. And I gave Coco 8 points out of those 10. The second criteria, were there good questions asked and were the good points made? I think that there were good questions that were asked and there were some very good points that were made. I gave a 5 total for that, and I gave Coco 4 out of the 5. Was the affirmative able to demonstrate the flawed nature of the opposition's position and control the direction of the conversation? I felt that there was a good approach, but I don't think that there was a full command of the direction or control of the conversation in that regard. That also had 5 points. I gave Coco 3 out of those 5, which came to a total of 15 out of the 20 points total. Then this conclusion. So the conclusion, the criteria was there an ability to conclude the entire debate and summarize the points issued and the flaws of the opposing side? And essentially, what I heard Coco saying was he was asking why God would decide to put a kid on a bike knowing that he would fail and not produce sainthood, essentially. That there were those who were giving these tasks that were failing them, and why would God approach it in that regard, in that way? And there were 13 total points for that. I gave 11, and total points then would be 49 out of 58. When it comes to Brody, I felt that his presentation and opening statements were very, very strong. I gave him 2 for establishment of position, 2 for research, 2 for overall preparation, 2 for delivery, and 1 for the points that were made. And so that came out to 9 out of 10. When it comes to the rebuttals and to the opening statement, I thought Brody did a good job. It was very strong. His ability to rebut the opposition, I gave 3. The debater, the demonstration of a strong ability to rebut, I gave a 1. And was he able to grasp the opponent's position correctly and comprehend and reply? The answer is, in my view, yes. I gave him a 5. Were the points addressed? Were all of the points addressed? He did a very thorough job in addressing point by point what was being presented by Coco. So I gave him a 5 for that. And did it appear that he came prepared for possible arguments? I think that it was more that he had the ability to respond on the fly. And so I gave him a 1 for that. It was a 15 out of 15 for that category. The cross-examination total was a 17 out of 20. I think that he did really well when it came to asking the leading questions, and that was a 9 out of 10. All of the questions asked and the points that were made, 5 out of 5. And he was able to demonstrate the flawed nature of the opposition. I don't know that that was the case, that he was able to demonstrate that, but he definitely posed enough question that it was not that the opponent had a complete solidity when it came to those points. So I gave that 3 out of 5, which was a total of 17 out of 20. So from his closing, the conclusion was the ability to conclude. I said yes. Basically, he was saying God is justified in creating a world with evil. God is creating an environment where people would learn how to ride their bikes. And his presentation in regards to that, and it was consistency. So I gave that 12 out of 13. Total final score for Brody was 53 out of 58. So I gave it to Brody.
Thank you. And just for the audience's point, 1, I enjoyed your suffering, audience. 2, this is my point. This man went above it. He went down, like, analytically and was just like, well, if you pay attention to minute 06, Brody didn't use the silkiness of his hair to the utmost efficient. And it's like, I'm just telling you, he's an alien. But as you heard it here first, folks, it was, in fact, a easy sweep for our one and only Brody. It was, in fact,
flawless victory, fatality.
Anything you want to say for yourself, Brody?
Oh, gotta let the music play. I don't think I can't hear myself. I don't think easy is the right word to use. Coco came super prepared, and I feel like his objections to my points actually caught me off guard a lot. Coco, you did very, very, very well, and it's been an honor debating you, bro, and I'm looking forward to playing some more Fortnite with you soon, man. So thank you so much for thinking of me, accepting the challenge. And if anybody else in here in the chat wants to debate, let me know. All right, my DMs are open. All right, this won't be the first one, and maybe Coco can host next time or something, or one of you guys can challenge Coco. The door is open. It's happening. Thank you, judges. Thank you, everybody. God bless.
Yeah, thank you all for coming and enjoying the debate. Is there anything that you, Coco, our lovely host, would like to say at the end to send us off? Also, last little thing, everyone cringing in chat, good. I sustain myself off of your emotional suffering.
Okay, that's the commentary. I would like to say, like, I'm not even taking the loss, like, in a bad way. I really enjoyed this event. I'm glad, like, everybody showed up. hopefully everybody could have like learned something from this. I think Brody did a very good job. And what I need to do as someone who wants to be good at debating is to rewatch the footage, see what good points that Brody made, see how even maybe some of Brody's points might change the way that I think about Christianity and some of the things there. There is something to learn from this. Maybe some of the information here has inspired somebody in the audience to change their position. So like, I'm glad that the debate could do that and spread information and get other people to look at it. I lost fair and square. It was 5 sweeps. So congratulations to Brody. You did very well. Like honestly, good job. Like really awesome. And I think I do want to take my losses and graciousness. I don't want to be a sore loser. If you earn a win, you earn a win. So he earned it. And
Yeah, this is the beginning of Coco's anime arc. He like loses to this is essentially where the main villain like shit stomps him in season 1, only for him to come back season 5. You better watch out, Brody.
Yeah, I guess like pointers that I need to like fix things on. I even noticed that like I was losing in certain aspects. Brody asked me to present like a logical argument, and I couldn't come up with like a modus ponens at the moment. So like, very good, very good. I think the debate went well. I love everybody for being here. I love all the judges, and they're very accurate critiques. And congratulations to Brody for winning fair and square. And both of us will hopefully go on to become better debaters and learn from this, grow from this, and it is what it is. So I really enjoyed the event, and I am going to continue to host debates and debate people. So if anyone in the audience, there's 106 people in here, if you want to debate and you want a professional debate with judges, rubrics, and you want to show your edge over somebody else, feel free to DM me, and I will be hosting those debates, and I will also be debating more and learning more about Christianity and atheism, trying to figure out like what I am going to believe in, being that I'm agnostic. So thank you guys for all being here, and that's all I gotta say.
Yeah, and just 2 things. One, if you don't want me, for example, hosting your debate, you can pick like any person. You can give like more or less instructions. That's the thing we kind of want to do, or at least Coco wants to do, is bring a more formal kind of structure, and that doesn't necessarily mean a strict structure like they do in like collegiate debate, which feels very restrictive, but more so like, hey, if 2 people, kind of like in the olden days where you could agree to a duel at sundown, agree to conditions of a debate, then you tell Coco and inform him, then he can set it up with a host such as I, or someone significantly less cringe if you are not a fan of, having an office character as your host. You can do that. So jokes aside, thank you for allowing me to be the host here. Lovely talking to all of the debaters and the judges, and sounds like, what's it called again? Oh, don't worry. I don't worry about being cringe. Remember, I live off it, Mitch. But some people have been requesting being able to do some guest commentary. Do you want to do some of that stuff?
Yeah, they can come up. We also need to take like audience vote. I don't know if we did a poll or not, but we should do a poll right now while there's like 93 people in the room. Get like an audience vote of who they think won. But yeah, we can start inviting guests up. All the judges are up here. We have only 1 spot available, so it's however you guys want to do it. But yeah.
Yeah, we can. Oh, sorry. We could give like each person like a minute at least, or like a couple questions or something. Yeah.
And I guess a mod could start a poll, or I could do it. It's whatever.
Can I talk? Or permission to speak?
All right, go for it.
Granted, Captain. Wait,
So,
I say Captain.
Coco, I
should say
think you had a
private. I'm
good
an idiot.
opening statement. It was clear, it was concise, it was coherent. However, like through like the middle of the debate, like I didn't really like the points that you were making, because you were more or less like it shifted away from like a problem of evil debate. And what I mean by that is like showing like the inherent contradiction in between, like within the Christian view of like evils, to like personally like Coco's issues that he has like with God. It devolved into that, like the personal pet peeves that you have with the Christian worldview. And a lot of people kind of mistake that from the problem of evil, but that's very much not the problem of evil. Or at least in my view, I don't very much care whether you like feel good or agree with God in the way he does things. It's not your goal to win here is not by saying, well, God doesn't act the way I think he should act. It's no, God is internally contradicting by his own very nature. And if that's not what you're arguing for, I don't even know what we're here to say. Now, a lot of people are saying, okay, well, it's just evidential. But the issue with saying that is it's evidential to Coco's feelings, because Coco was more or less like, well, God hasn't shown to me personally that these things that he's doing and why he's doing it and whether or not it's good. He hasn't shown that to me. And it's like, I don't know why I would care on whether he showed it to you directly in the particular manner that he
So
wanted.
Cypher, I would just kind of keep this like quick and sweet.
That was quick and sweet.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
Okay, next person's coming up. Shoot, anybody.
Diricus Miricus,
There's like
the vegan king.
people. There's like 8 people. Okay. Deer, what up? Wait, am I muted or something? Or
No, Amdir just hates you. Anyway, Amdir. No, I'm kidding. Want to drop your thoughts on? Oh no, he really does hate. Never mind. God dang. Next, I guess.
we couldn't hear him.
Can you hear me? Yo?
We can hear you fine.
Perfect. Just got a real question. Coco, after like 7 consecutive back shots, how you plan on coming back?
I don't know. Just gotta keep working hard and trying again.
That's decent. You're not gonna try nothing new though. No like tactics you can share with us. Any preliminary thoughts?
The debate literally just ended. I still have to think and like regroup.
Yeah, that's not the mindset of a champion.
Coco, you moron. Why haven't you completely figured out an entirely new epistemic framework, thought process, done 200 hours of data research in 12 seconds after your debate? Should I be accepting people, or did you guys want to choose?
Next guess.
Yeah, oh, oops, I accidentally added another one. I'll mute one. Sorry, moderator Matt, for Corey's first.
Hey guys, how's it going?
After moderator Matt, I am gonna have to leave. But thank you, of course, for everything.
Go for it, Corey.
Anyone can go for it.
So
do you think your
my thinking
reverse
was on
psychology
this.
works?
After listening to the debate, basically in my head, I was just thinking, pretty much throughout all of it. So just thank you very much for this tonight.
Yo, so that was really good. I sat in through the whole thing, and I tell you, the whole thing was like super entertaining. I think Coco, you guys got to do a lot more of these, even if the topics don't get heated like a lot of these do. It still is very entertaining to see you guys work through the logic. But Coco, I got to say, man, just to preface this, I'm atheist. Give you my position, so I understand what Coco was saying the whole time. But Coco, you just got to control the conversation a little bit more. And I know what you're saying when you say the whole situation about like, yeah, you can have the option to ride the bike, but it's like dangling a carrot in front of somebody's face that you'll never actually get, right? You'll be tortured, or you'll have pain, but you'll never actually get it. But when he turns around and he says, hey, look, you failed to do X and Y in this conversation. Well, you did do it, but you just need to clarify and rephrase what he's trying to get you to achieve, right? So like, I think he was saying, you got to show how everything is, like, there's not a single case that is not necessary, because everything can bring you to a higher level of sainthood or whatever it is. But in the cases where it is impossible, because God already knows that you won't achieve that thing, but He continues to allow you to suffer.
All right, enough of that, I guess. Am I audible now?
Wait, he wasn't. Wait, hold on. He wasn't finished. We're not gonna.
Well, I don't know. I think he left, so.
I don't know who kicked him.
Yeah, can we not kick people in the middle of? Oh, okay. I guess he was finished. Okay.
Okay. Can I ask my question before Brody leaves, or is he leaving now?
Dear.
Sweet, sweet. Okay, so it sounded like I mean, I didn't listen to all of it, but from the beginning, it sounded like Coco was giving some sort of, evidential problem of evil, and your response was a saint-making theodicy. So what I'm curious is, what would you say to a problem of evil which is constructed in terms of evils not involving moral agents? So evils like, deer dying alone in the woods, laying beneath a tree where nobody will ever encounter it, suffering and then dying. What would be your response to a problem of evil involving those sorts of evils?
I think in large, like, natural evils still do and can contribute to saint fostering. Now, like, with a specific example like the deer in the woods thing, I think, like, when I just think about that, like, animals need a knowledge of the world around them, including pain and suffering, in order to properly raise their young. So I just think there's like a simple instrumental good to allowing this to happen, because it could be possibly that, like, only in a world which they witness forest fires and other natural disasters can they learn how to sense and respond to such threats. But, like, larger scale too, there's a lot of really good arguments for like these evils being redeemed in the afterlife for animals. Like, Trent O'Hurdy gives the view of I don't want to mess this up, but, like, there's one view of animal deification, where, like, they are made into saints in the future. There's another view of them being kind of treated like martyrs in the afterlife. So there's a lot of different ways a Christian can go with that.
Okay, I'll leave it there since you have to go.
All right, good talking to you guys. I'll check the YouTube video to hear what else you guys say afterwards, so you guys can still talk about me if you want. But all right, peace out, Coco. Love you, man. Thanks for setting this up.
Yeah, love you too. Okay, anyone else? We got more guests coming up. I'm just going on the line.
Oh, I definitely didn't mean to come up, but good job, Coco.
Thank you. Okay, I'll bring up the next guest.
What's up, guys? I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hey, Coco. I guess I'm a little biased when it comes to this. I feel like I was leaning towards Brody, or at least I was hoping that Brody would win. I think a lot of believers were also being a little biased. I was glad that most of your judges were not biased in that sense. I thought they would be, but it was good that they weren't. It's good to see that you're being humble with the L in this. One of the things I guess I would have loved to hear you guys discuss is infinite and finite minds when it comes to consciousness, because I think that we really need to understand, if there's a finite creator, then we need to understand that he's thinking totally different than the way that we thinking, the way that we think. And I think also, in conclusion, that I think we need to understand, if we're saying that Jesus was created by this finite being, we need to understand, I feel like, what the manifestation process was, or what the finite being was created when they created Jesus, if I'm making any sense. So I think we need to delve into that a little deeper. Finite minds, finite creator, what Jesus was he consciously talking about a finite mind, and how we should actually be finite beings? And then potentially also the intention of creation. So that's just
different. Well, that's a different conversation, though. That wasn't part of the thing. But thanks.
Okay.
Looking for.
All right, can I go? Is my turn?
Yeah, sure. Go for it.
Hey, Coco. It's me, Kunta. So, I guess my question to you is, what was preventing you from like coming up with some sort of response about the I don't know how to pronounce this word, gratuitous evil? Like, I could think about like maybe hopelessness, hell, maybe inherent opposition to some sort of like moral goodness, ultimate moral goodness. Or another one I could think about is like an inherent sense of like selfishness. So like I guess my question is, what was preventing you from like maybe thinking about one?
So when you define gratuitous evils are going to be evils that we know God couldn't have any possible reason for having it exist. So with any evil that happens on this earth, you could say that it's a inscrutable evil. It would be an evil that we simply just don't have the understanding of why it happens. But in order to determine like a gratuitous evil, I probably just need more knowledge on how one would determine what is gratuitous evil. But to my knowledge as of right now, um, you would need to know that there is no possible reason in which God could have this evil on earth for like some good or better reason. And that would make it a gratuitous evil. Like it would just be complete wrongdoing for God to allow this to happen, and nothing good could come of it.
Yeah, I would like to talk to you more about this, but thank you for your response.
Anyone else?
Yeah. So hi, Mr. Coco. I think you did really well, especially in the opening of the debate, laying out your main points, defining everything, and setting up a really good, strong position at the beginning there. When it comes to who ultimately won, I think I think the judges were very analytical and very excuse me, made a good decision of choosing Brody. I agree that Brody won the debate overall, especially towards the cross examination point. But both of y'all were really well in terms of presentations. Excuse me, and yeah, no. Other than that, I'm very proud of the both of y'all for doing a good job on that.
Okay, thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. I'd also like to talk to you about like possibly you hosting a debate that I might have, but like I can just do that in like a DM.
Oh yeah, feel free. I have you and then like one other person and then like a third debate that I have to take care of. But yeah, I will get all of those done and get judges and rubrics and yeah, I'd be happy to host that.
Awesome. All right. Well, peace be with you all.
Yeah.
But okay. That's everybody in the guest request.
Well, I've got a question. I've got a question for the host as well as Dream. I thought this was a really good comedy show, guys. I just want to know, where do you get your ideas from?
What ideas?
Schizophrenic voices in my head telling me how to cause the audience the most secondhand embarrassment / suffering so that I can feed off it.
Hey Coco, great debate, man. I'm gonna drop for now.
Okay.
Thank you guys.
I don't know if anyone else wants me to like keep hosting this live. I don't know. It's really up to you guys.
Coco, it was great. I want to thank you, and I think you did a great job. Look forward to the future of it. Peace.
Yeah, and Saul, where do you get your ideas from?
I consult Dream of Dawn.
Okay, well, I'm the last judge, I guess, huh?
What else is left, boys?
I don't know.
Death.
We need to do the encore. You just